Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Trinity Multiverse, and I'm here with an exciting first episode as we get to discuss everything that was shown during Media Day at Epic Universe, and specifically for today's episode, what we've seen for Dark Universe. So why don't we just jump right in? To get started, for those of you who aren't aware, Universal Studios has been having employee previews for Epic Universe and all 4 of their lands, or portals as you would call them. And just a couple days ago, we actually got to have Media Day, where a bunch of influencers and employees themselves got to post from the park what the lands look like and character meet and greets, so on and so forth. So I just want to dive right in and go land by land and just talk about everything we've seen so far and the little Easter eggs that I've discovered while watching some of these YouTube videos and posts that I've seen on social media. So to get started, as soon as you enter through the portal, you're immediately immersed into Darkmoor, and the perfect way is by catacombs. From the videos I've watched, you're introduced to Frankenstein's catacomb off to the left, and if you pay close attention and make sure you're there when it's not crowded, you can actually hear Igor and the Bride of Frankenstein and Victoria Frankenstein talk while they're down in the experimental labs, which I find so cool. And not only that, but off to the right hand side of the entrance, we get multiple coffins, and one coffin in particular that seems to be broken out of by a certain vampire. Not saying Dracula in particular, but one of his many minions that have been infesting Darkmoor during this time frame. As we continue into the park, past the coffins, past the catacombs, we get into the main center where we have the monster makeup experience. We have the gift shop, we have Doss Steakhouse, and we have a special little meet and greet with the one and only Invisible Man. Not only is he mean and sassy, but he looks exactly like Claude Rains' Invisible Man. And I love that they went with that route, because from my understanding, Dark Universe was going to be centered around Tom Cruise's Mummy, and almost like a continuation from that, but just obviously a more built through story for the other monsters. So the fact that they took Claude Rains' Invisible Man and made him into a meet and greet character that's pretty spot on, I would say, is amazing. And then we also get introduced to our other walk around meet and greet character, Igor, which he's so adorable, so cute, so funny. I love the fact, and I've always appreciated this about Universal, that these characters can just walk around and do what they want on their own, and they don't have somebody overseeing them, telling people, oh, you can't stand here, you can't get a line for a photo. They can just kind of do what they want, walk where they want. And I find it so immersive, because it's not just, oh, here's this person, oh, but you're not allowed to line up and you're not allowed to do this. It's like, no. They want to walk away from you, they can walk away from you. You know, if they want to stay and talk to you for however long they want, they have free range to do that. And from every video I've seen, that's exactly what's been happening with Igor and Invisible Man. Whereas the Bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster, specifically Victoria Frankenstein's monster, there is a meet and greet line. So there is a standby meet and greet, and that one I do think I appreciate being a set up standard meet and greet, just because for me, I would want a guaranteed photo with either or. I'm not complaining, but I just think the fact that we have these meet and greets and so much potential for future meet and greets, obviously. I mean, we could have Dracula, we could have Creature, we could have Wolfman. As time goes on, you know, the park's not quite open, so it's understandable to only have a certain amount of characters. But I love to see where they're going with this, though, and the interactiveness that these characters have, and the fact that they're not shying away from being mean, which is perfect, in my opinion. But now that we discussed our character meet and greets, let's discuss their animatronic counterparts in Frankenstein's manner, specifically for Monsters Unchained. Right now, most of the footage that we've seen is specifically from the queue. You're not technically allowed to record on a ride, although we will discuss some leaked footage later. I'm going to talk about the pre-show and specifically the animatronic for Victoria Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster, which is, you guessed it, the 9-foot walking version of Frankenstein's monster. So when you're in the queue, when you first enter, you go up the stairs through the mansion all the way up until you're pretty much not in a line anymore. I would kind of compare it to, let's say, Rise of the Resistance in a way, where you're not technically in a line anymore. You're just kind of grouped together to go to this pre-show room. Same kind of concept here, except Victoria Frankenstein is delving into what her experiment is and kind of the whole entire premise of the ride. So her description is that everyone views the name Frankenstein and associates it with a monster. They called Henry Frankenstein a monster, and she wants to change their perception of that concept. And her way of doing so is by capturing and taking control of Dracula. And specifically, it's between her and her version of Frankenstein's monster, which she had completely redone, which is why he's 9 feet tall now. And obviously doesn't look like Boris Karloff's version, which is totally okay. Like, I still love the animatronic to pieces. But we see those firsthand, already animatronics in the queue, which honestly is kind of smart. When you are in the queue as well, you do see screens, specifically for versions of Igor and Dracula. So you're not quite introduced to their animatronics yet, but it is a nice touch that the first ones you get introduced to are the Frankenstein duo. And specifically Victoria Frankenstein, because she's obviously a brand new character. She's not someone that we actually have grown up with in film and media. So it's nice that we get introduced to her very early on. So the concept of the ride makes a little bit more sense, and you're not just kind of thrown in there, kind of expecting to know everything about this ride. Which does bring me to what the storyline is. Like I said, the whole premise is she's trying to experiment on Dracula, gain control of him. So the monster we see is her version, not Henry Frankenstein's, but Victoria Frankenstein's. That's why he looks so different in both concept art and in meet and greet photos. And it's because he's not supposed to be directly from Boris Karloff's Frankenstein film, which totally understandable. I know things need to be a little bit different. It is just a little tricky, I feel like, story-wise, just because I don't fully know what version the Wolfman's supposed to be, or who essentially is the human counterpart to the Wolfman. And I'm also wondering exactly the Brides of Dracula we're going to be seeing, and if it can tie into Van Helsing. Because one thing I did research and find out is that one of the confirmed animatronics is a Bride of Dracula. And apparently there's also supposed to be something that's not exactly named Van Helsing, but a vampire hunter who's very similar in characteristics to that. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what generation they're from, or if they are taking after the original Universal monsters, or even if they're direct descendants, kind of like Victoria Frankenstein is. And I'm sure as we get more information and as more media days approach, we're going to get a full storyline to really how all of these connect. I'm just kind of piecing together on the little tidbit of information that I have from these videos. But as time gets on, obviously we're going to know exactly what each monster is pertained to in this ride, why they're there, so on and so forth. But that does bring me to the leaked ride footage, which I don't think a lot of people have seen. But someone had leaked some ride footage. And so far, our confirmed animatronics are Creature from the Black Lagoon, Wolfman, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Dracula, Bride of Dracula, the Mummy, And one that I did know they were going to do, but was a little iffy with their design, was Phantom of the Opera. And the only reason I was a little bit iffy is because obviously all of our adaptations of Phantom of the Opera now is a man who is handsome, but unfortunately is burned or disfigured on one section of his face. But the original Phantom of the Opera, played by Lon Chaney, who also played the Wolfman, was a monster just all in his form. And from what I've seen from that leaked footage, the animatronic is practically identical to Lon Chaney's Phantom of the Opera, and I love it because the whole entire premise and what we've learned from Universal and their process of building specifically Dark Universe is they want you to be scared. This is not a child's theme park. They want you to feel terrified. The whole entire thing is that Universal was pretty much built off of Universal monsters, and those films terrified people. So why would they shy away from doing that in a theme park? And I love that concept because his animatronic is downright terrifying. But to me, it's beautiful at the same time because that's what I grew up with. And I'm so excited to see them take that step because obviously they're very known for Halloween Horror Nights. Pretty much each year they've been doing Universal Monsters, but to actually take the step and have it built into a ride at a theme park is something that they're really one of the first ones to do. You know, Disney has Haunted Mansion, but Haunted Mansion doesn't really scare people. It might make people feel like uncomfortable, but it doesn't scare them. And from what I've heard about this ride is that, yeah, you're going to get scared. There's jump scares. You know, they're not shying away from that. And I think what they've done with the animatronics is spectacular. And I really do think it's going to bring that concept of fear and reality to the viewer and obviously the person sitting in the actual ride cart. But it's amazing. And I can't wait to see more videos, obviously, as time goes on. But just that little snippet I saw, I can already tell this is going to be one of the most advanced rides for both technology and immersiveness. It's going to be so advanced that I really do think it's going to be hard for Disney and other theme parks to catch up. I'll be so for real because it's so amazing what they're able to do and who they've been able to get back onto their team for this. Because I also just found out that Danny Elfman had actually done the music for Dark Universe as a whole. Not just for Monsters Unchained, but for the actual land itself. And that to me is so amazing because Danny Elfman does A Nightmare Before Christmas. You know, he does all of Tim Burton's films. So the fact they were able to get him and his creative mindset and had him craft a musical piece for this land is amazing. And I think it really shows the research that they've done, and it showcases what exactly they're willing to do in order to get this theme park to kick off on its feet. And personally for me, you know what? I'm here for it. Totally here for it. And I'm not saying that because I grew up loving Universal Monsters, and it might sound biased, and maybe it is, but the fact that they're taking these steps to making sure they're getting people who are already spooky on the inside and the outside, and they're willing to take these steps into crafting these rides and these animatronics that are meant to scare you is great. And that also leads me to their second ride that they offer at Dark Universe, which is called The Curse of the Werewolf. And I watched a YouTuber recently post his experience on this ride. And they do have a werewolf animatronic inside of the barn. Spoiler alert. I'm sorry, not sorry, really. Everyone deserves to know that. But fully built, lunging werewolf animatronic that's actually stationed inside of the barn. Your ride vehicles, they do spin. It's the same type of mechanism that Guardians of the Galaxy at Epcot has, but also what the Fast and Furious coaster out here in Universal Studios Hollywood's getting. So not too much of a fast roller coaster. Definitely spins a little bit more. But I think the fact that they put an animatronic in an outdoor type of roller coaster is honestly pretty smart. I can't say that as far as like advanced animatronics go that I've really seen any that are for an outside type of ride. Mostly see them for dark rides or, things like that, like Rise of the Resistance, like Finn's animatronic. But to have that outside, I think is really smart. But it also just, again, shows the steps they're willing to take to make you immersed. It's the curse of the werewolf. You're fighting off the curse. You're evolving into a werewolf itself. Of course, you would see the one that bit you or scratched you. I don't exactly know how this, curse of the werewolf gets transferred, whether it be bite or scratch. You present that into this ride, and I think it's so smart on their behalf to do this. I think the whole park itself is just amazing. Dark Universe is really something so special and so immersive. From Doss Steakhouse, having, and I'll insert photos so everyone can see this. They have a chandelier up above that's made from skulls and steaks. And they have bodies of vampires hanging in there. And they have vampire hunters all about at the Burning Blade Tavern. They have vampire hunters. They have a drink that specifically is made of wolfsbane. And they're giving it to you so you can fight off the curse of the werewolf. And it's so immersive. And everyone is so into it. And it just blows my mind. Like, it really does. And the fact that I can go and get my face painted and I can become a monster, and then I could go get a drink made of wolfsbane, and then I could just walk around and potentially run into Invisible Man or Igor is brilliant. It really is. And I honestly cannot wait for more media days. I cannot wait to see more progress, because obviously it's still in the beginning stages right now, even though there's a little over a month away from opening. It's gonna be insane. And I cannot wait to see the smallest of developments that they're going to be making towards this land within the upcoming month. And I really do hope that, it's as amazing in person, which I know it's going to be. But I can't wait to experience this. And of course, I'll be updating each time I see something pertaining to Dark Universe or Epic Universe. But thank you for listening to my little rant about what I've seen for Media Day here for Dark Universe at Epic Universe. I will be covering the Wizarding World of Harry Potter next. I'll be talking all things Harry Potter, all the Easter eggs that I noticed as a Harry Potter fan, everything that has been added, has been told, and we'll just discuss. But let me know in the comments if you're just as excited for Epic Universe to open as I am. And what land are you most excited for? Is it Dark Universe, Wizarding World of Harry Potter? You excited for How to Train Your Dragon or Super Nintendo World? Let me know. I'll make sure to do coverage on each of these parks so that way none of them feel left out. It's okay. We'll sit here and we can talk and we can chill and we can discuss all of our favorite things about these lands. But with that being said, thank you for listening, and stay tuned. You'll never know what's around the corner.